Folks, welcome back to another episode of Coffee, Tea, and Crime. Today, Code and a Cornfield. Unsolved murder of Ricky McCormick. June 30th, 1999, partially decomposed body of our victim, Ricky McCormick, was discovered in a field in St. Charles County, Missouri. Now that's just a rock's throw away north of St. Louis. Now, police on the scene found two handwritten notes. What they termed some type of a code was written on paper, and they were in the victim's pockets. Now, the sheriff's department there couldn't do nothing with it, so they would eventually send it to the FBI. And the FBI's top-notch code breakers, they couldn't do anything with it either. Later on, the FBI would issue an appeal to the public in trying to solve the two codes on these pages. Now, the victim, he had not had a really good life overall. He was a high school dropout. He moved all over the place in the greater St. Louis area. Occasionally, he'd go live with his elderly mother. Now, according to the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the victim had chronic heart and lung problem. Now, he had a criminal history, and he'd served 11 months of a 3-year sentence on a statutory rape charge. And he was 41 years old, unemployed, and he was receiving a disability check. The victim's body was found in a cornfield near West Alton, Missouri. It's by a woman that was driving along a field road near Route 367. Now, he was 15 miles away from his then current address, which of course brings up the issue, how did he get there? Because he didn't own a car and there was no public transportation provided for that particular area. Now, due to the condition of the body, authorities had to identify him through fingerprint. Now, no one had reported him missing. The last time he'd been seen alive was 5 days earlier on June 25th. He was getting a health checkup at the Forest Park Hospital. Now, at the time, they were treating the death as a possible homicide. Authorities could not determine cause of death. So now at some point, it's confirmed that the victim died of a gunshot wound. Now, what drew so much interest was the two handwritten notes in his pocket. There's been all kinds of theories about the information is going to lead to a drug dealing operation or addresses, some other kind of criminal wrongdoing, or according to the resource material, our victim had taken a couple trips to Florida. And so the resource material says they were mysterious trips. I don't know if they termed them mysterious because McCormick didn't really have a means of transportation or the funds to take such trips. But now at some point he was working for a couple of brothers that owned a gas station or two there in St. Louis. Now there was rumors and innuendos that possibly the victim was transporting narcotics or was involved in the narcotics trade through the employers at the service station. Now, some resource material said that his girlfriend told authorities she thought he was smuggling drugs. Now, our victim was known as a loner. He was also, you could term him to have been a vampire because he worked at night and he slept during the day. I worked a midnight shift for years, so I was a vampire at one time. Now, we may not be able to say why the victim was murdered, but I think we can rule out reasons. Number one, drive-by shooting, which is a pretty common affair in larger cities. Now, if he'd have been the victim of a random drive-by, his body would have laid where it fell. It wouldn't have been a robbery gone bad, because I seriously doubt the robbers, if they accidentally pulled the trigger and the victim goes down, I doubt they're going to decide to load him up and haul him miles and miles away from where the crime occurred just to go dump him out in the field. But now I guess we could theorize and say that I think there's a good possibility that he was taken to the location of his death. He was probably still alive. It's a lot easier to taking the victim while he's still breathing, take him where you want him, and then take care of your business and then go back into town. There would be less cleanup if the victim's not already deceased, because then you gotta get rid of the car, either dump it in the river or crush it or something. Cleanup would be a problem, but if he's still alive, it's a little bit easier to vacuum out the car and not worry about it. Now this has, to me, the earmarks of a murder, because possibly the victim was tied up into something illegal. I saw a good many kidnapping murders in Memphis. And generally when you get one where the victim is kidnapped or at least taken to another location in a remote area and executed, it's generally got to do with some shenanigans that the victim may have been involved in, or at least somebody thought he was, one way or the other. In terms of these notes, these codes, just my belief that it's nothing more than a ruse by whoever executed him, just to give the police and the public something else to look at. Everybody's focusing on the notes and not focusing on the victim and his demise and who may have done it and why. A lot of time's being spent on these notes, and if I had to bet a shiny quarter, I'd say they mean nothing. But then again, now I love crossword puzzles, but I'm not very good at them. I think this is somebody had a sick sense of humor and probably was a big fan of the serial killer, the Zodiac. But obviously I'm just spitballing, I don't know, but I think they mean nothing. It's just to mislead the police and the public. This case is obviously still unsolved.